Hello, welcome to another episode of Greenlight. I'm your host, Jennifer Edwards, and we're excited to have you back here with us again today. As promised, we have another great episode teed up for you. So if you joined us in the last episode, we were joined by Jay Lasseter, and he is coming back this week to interview Vicki Trees, our head of policy and regulatory affairs. So we're going to dive deeper into the discussion that Jay introduced a few weeks ago around grid modernization. And Vicki's going to give us, some insights into what she's seeing in the regulatory environment, talking through some trends. And if there's one key takeaway I'd like for you to have for this episode, it's really that Landis+Gyr is experienced at partnering with our utility customers as we help you to build your cases and support you throughout your approvals process. We really are all in this together, and we're here to help. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jay and Vicki. So let's take a look.
Hey, thanks, Jen. Looking forward to another episode here of Greenlight. So as Jen mentioned, very excited to have Vicki Trees here today, and we're going to talk a little bit not only regulatory policy, but just broadly speaking, how projects are getting approved, how they're being seen in the marketplace today, and maybe some ideas and tips about things to think about. Because as Jen mentioned, Landis+Gyr has a tremendous amount of experience with really hundreds of projects that we've helped utilities get started. So without further ado, let me introduce Vicki Trees. Vicki, how are you today?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How are things in Minnesota?
It's looking really nice outside, enjoying a little bit of summer sunshine.
Well, thank you for spending some time today. I've been on both sides of the camera now, okay? So I'm going to have a little fun asking the questions today and do appreciate your time. Hey, Vicki, can we start a little bit, right? So you get the context here, right? We're constantly working with utilities to help them kind of understand why these projects are important and how they can get them justified, whether that's, with a commission, a board, or a city council, okay? They all have to go through kind of a similar piece here to get these approved. But can we start with kind of some of the environmental thing? We talk a lot about Landis+Gyr. Obviously, our tagline is manage energy better. We talk a lot about, the environmental impact our projects have, on the environment, how important that is. And I think we do a great job, not only at Landis+Gyr, but within the industry. But is that still a topic? I mean, do we talk enough or a lot about that in the industry when it comes to maybe justifying or looking at projects from your perspective?
First, Jay, I'd like to say that green and clean is still a top priority in the industry. So whether it's regulators or consumers or the utilities themselves, they have a really solid track record of actually putting forward very aggressive goals around green and clean. And utilities are actually making a lot of headway. And in fact, many of them not only have laid out aggressive goals, but they're actually on track to achieve their goals prior to the deadlines they've placed on themselves. So to the question of, is green still relevant? Is clean still relevant? Absolutely. The question that you ask around, does clean and green get associated with advanced metering and smart grid technologies? I think there we still have a ways to go in making sure the market is aware of the various ways AMI and smart grid technologies help. If I think back on the basics of just AMI technology, we think about taking fewer meter readings, maybe making fewer trips to different premises. And in fact, one of our customers, Encore Utilities, which is a larger utility in Texas, over the past 10 years, they calculated that they had actually reduced 35 million service calls that they would have normally made pre-automation. They were able to eliminate those. And that translated for them into 176 million miles or fewer miles driven. And that's a huge impact on CO2. In their case, 143,000 tons of CO2 were not emitted just because of that one aspect of not driving those miles. And when we think about Landis+Gyr, we did a little analysis and found that if we just extrapolate what our smart meter deployment is across the globe, we actually, over the course of our fiscal year 2019, eliminated 8 million tons of direct CO2 emissions just from the simple fact of not needing to make those trips.
Yeah, that's amazing. Those are some great facts and figures there, Vicki. Thanks for that. So, these projects are green, which is great, but there's also some operational benefit too, right? So not only good for the environment, but I think I can't help but imagine those truck rolls are really helping out financially, operationally. And I know, the first wave of kind of what we did was really helping take people out of the field, right? Not really eliminating headcount, but maybe repositioning folks. Are there still more and additional kind of operational benefits that are being considered and discussed when we're talking about these projects?
Absolutely. I think one of the challenges utilities have is they had plans in their initial programs to implement operational benefits, and they've made their deployments, and they maybe haven't shared with a broader community what those operational benefits are, or they haven't maybe necessarily quantified those benefits. A great example of that is around the topic of outage management. Advanced metering systems in many cases will actually report outages back to the utility prior to their customers actually calling in. Those utilities who have successfully integrated those alarms and alerts into their enterprise systems, where they're able to identify pockets of outages, where they're able to deploy their field crews more quickly. On the restoration side, they're able to look at the data and say, don't pull our crews from the area, let's make sure we have everyone restored. That whole outage and restoration management process has been very effective for some utilities. But Jay, I'm surprised there still are a lot of utilities that have AMI that haven't fully integrated that functionality into their business operation. So I think just in that basic functionality, there's an opportunity for some improvement.
Yeah, that's great. So great insight. Appreciate your expertise in this, Vicki. I know you spend almost all your time, right, talking to industry, regulators, different customers about these. I'm curious, how does grid resiliency fit into this too? That seems like a kind of a hot topic these days. Could you maybe expand on that a little bit and talk about grid resiliency for us?
Sure. When we think about grid resiliency, it's really the ability of the grid to recover from different incidents that happen. And it may be something as simple as an asset or a piece of equipment failing in the field, and then switching taking place that allows the energy to continue to flow to those impacted homes through that switching mechanism. Resiliency is often tied to storms because they tend to be somewhat unpredictable. And utilities then need to react quickly because power is such an essential service. When we think about resiliency from a Landis & Gyr perspective, we're always thinking about ways that our technology can help build awareness at that grid edge so that the utility can react more quickly and restore power more quickly. That resiliency dialogue at the policy level is definitely strong. Some of the very things that the regulators are looking for utilities to do when they think about maybe something as simple as cleaning up the energy delivery system has led to the installation of more renewables. So if you think about solar and wind, and maybe it's a microgen or a battery storage, those are distributed resources. And those distributed resources, just like the name implies, are all throughout the service territory that a utility needs to manage and ensure that there's that efficient and effective delivery of energy. How a utility does that, if they don't have access to what's actually happening within the distribution system, can they see the load that's being created from those solar panels? Can they see what's actually being consumed? Are they able to understand what the voltage levels look like throughout their distribution system when the resources aren't necessarily under their direct control? All of those aspects of resiliency can really be positively impacted by the deployment of technology, whether it be through smart grid technology or AMI itself.
Yeah, I'm curious on the operational benefits, especially around outage. it seems like there is not only those benefits for utilities, but also some end consumer benefits, right? And that seems to be popular these days, especially in some regulatory circles, right? What's in it for the end consumer? And if we're going to spend money on these projects, there needs to be not only benefits to the utility itself, but to that end consumer. Could you, expand on that a little bit for the group? I mean, what you're seeing there? I mean, historically, it's been a lot about kind of feels like web portals, right? So maybe build on that for us, please.
Sure. I don't want to discount web portals. There is definitely value in having there be information that's available to consumers. In fact, the statistics have shown that just an awareness and an understanding of what's being consumed helps consumers be more efficient in their spend. That said, I think if all we do is a portal, we definitely are not meeting the needs and the expectations of the customers. So on a couple of fronts, when it comes to consumer benefits, the regulators, or those that are setting the policies, are trying to balance the economic impact or the costs associated with getting those benefits to market and the ability of people to pay. So they want to make sure that even if someone doesn't have the financial means, they get to have the benefits, and they don't want there to be an undue burden on lower income payees of energy in order to meet those needs. So definitely the economic question is one that needs to be addressed, and some through policy, some through programs. But in terms of the types of things consumers are looking for, I think back in the early days when we had AMI, we talked about having there be an in-home display so people could have direct access to energy usage at the time it was being consumed. Historically, you got a bill at the end of the month, you had already consumed your energy, and there really wasn't an opportunity to change your behavior. So when we talk about the tools today, we want to make sure consumers have the ability to make adjustments and changes. And instead of having an in-home display that's sitting on your kitchen counter, or maybe gets tucked in the kitchen drawer and after the novelty wears off, consumers have said, you know what, I expect it to be something that fits into my lifestyle. And a lot of us are very familiar with smartphones. We have applications that we have on our smartphone. It might be a home security system. It might be a home automation system. That is where end-use energy customers are also looking for their information. They're looking for there to be alerts that pop up on their phone that tell them, hey, your energy usage is high. Not only are they looking for that notice to be there, but then they're also looking for an ability to connect back in and actually make changes and adjustments to that via those applications. So when we're thinking about what does it mean for a consumer, it's about growing the ecosystem, making data available not just to the end use consumer, but letting the consumer provide that data to other people in their ecosystem or other services that they're interested in subscribing to.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking, this is my, in-home display these days, right? And I was going to say, whether it's an Alexa device, we've got to be careful what I say. She might talk back, but really leveraging those types of devices opposed to the specialty devices seems like a big theme these days. And look, in this time, I think it's really important to kind of emphasize and maybe thank, right? The folks in the field keeping the lights on. We don't always think of linemen, okay, as first responders, but in this case, boy, very paramount to what's happening as we move forward. So look, we're about to wrap up here, Vicki, but I got a trick question for you at the end, if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to put on your predictive hats, maybe turn you into a genie here and predict the future, okay? So, we've talked about operational benefits and consumer benefits. If you project things moving forward, okay, do you see this mix changing, or maybe even some new topics come in as we talk about, justifying these projects? Just really curious your perspective.
Absolutely. I think from a project justification standpoint, there will continue to be operational benefits that utilities are able to build into their business cases. In Landis and Gear vernacular, we like to call this grid edge intelligence, or this information that's available out at the edge of the network. what is it that utilities can do with the information? How is it that they can integrate it into other applications? And we think about how data and data analytics is applied in other industries. That's in the energy space as well, and there's a lot of creative minds. So I think those operational benefits for utilities will continue to grow. I think an area that's really interesting is what happens next on that consumer side. How do we actually engage with consumers? How involved do they want to be in the process? I think the current situation we're in now with COVID, there's a couple of great examples. Whether you go through kind of this angle of the health implications and the need to implement social distancing, we found that utilities are no longer able to go to their customer premise. They're needing to do, just like we are here, work remotely, have video chats with people. I've heard of them doing energy efficiency audits via WebEx and those types of applications. So there is this kind of desire that says, if we need to continue social distancing, how does the technology application help us do that? So that's one aspect, keeping us healthy, keeping fewer people in the field. And then the other is, what is the economic impact of this crisis right at the moment? If we think about the fact that many people are without jobs, they're concerned about being able to pay their bills. So utilities are concerned about bad debt increasing and their ability to continue to deliver the quality service. So there are some implications, I think, that we have. But like every good crisis or every opportunity that sits before us, how we react to it is probably the biggest challenge. And I think when I think of this particular instance, I feel like it's a really pivotal point for us to embrace technology and give credit where credit is due. And what I mean by that is, 6 months ago, if you would have asked a utility how they were, if they were able to distribute their employee resources in their homes and still be able to have the grid function and be able to do remote operation of traditional control room applications, there probably would have been hesitancy. But we've actually seen over the last 120 days, the energy system has really sustained us. It is the essential service that has allowed healthcare, it has allowed the work from home. And they've been able to do that by deploying different types of technology, operating remotely. And I think that will continue to grow. So I think there will be a more acceptance of that type of benefit.
Yeah, boy, I think you're spot on there, Vicki. I really appreciate those insights. I think, as we go through this COVID world, as we move forward, we're going to see more and more emphasis on getting people out of the field, right? So we think that's really important. Hey, thank you so much for your time today. One quick reminder for everyone that's watching, Lanison Gear has an incredible amount of experts, people like Vicki and others that really can help you justify projects and initiatives that you're interested in. So, Vicki, thanks again. Any final words or
Thank you.
comments?
It was a pleasure to be with you today. It's great to talk about what's happening in our industry. And I'll just echo your comment that we are here to help. If you need assistance making business cases, we have experience with over 300 utilities, and there's lots of great insights to share.
Thanks so much, Vicki, and looking forward to the next episode of Greenlight.
Well, thanks for joining us here today for another episode of Greenlight. So a few quick reminders. If you check below, you can fill out a form to stay in touch with us, or you can stay in touch with us on social media. If you fill out the form below, we're happy to have team members contact you directly. And then over the next few weeks, check back for some additional episodes. We have a couple of exciting topics heading your way, including the introduction of our new global CEO, Werner Lieberherr. And then we also have a number of subject matter experts from across the organization that are going to come to the table and share some product-related stories with you as well. So thanks again, and we'll see you back here in a few weeks.